is what happens. You will see many near-death experiences where you will question yourself. You have to go through it. You will go through it if you're starting up for the reason that you don't see any other way than this to create impact in life. When we started in 2015, there were at least 500 startups in this space. And today there is nobody except us remaining. COVID literally killed our company. We were at roughly a couple of $1 million a month of revenue. One day it went to zero.
Off the bat,
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your business, Brij? What does Magicpin do, for whom, and how well are you doing in the marketplace?
Sure. So, because the right question to get started with, right? Because this is what has consumed me for the last 8 years. So, I started Magicpin in 2015, and before that, I was an investor at Nexus Venture Partners. So, I was investing in companies. And one of my proud moments was investing in Delivery, which was started by Sahil Barwa, who was my junior and has IPO'd last year. So when I invested in those companies, I also dreamt of starting my own company someday. And fortunately, it happened soon enough. So the last 8 years has been all about Magicpin. So Magicpin does discovery and demand generation for local retailers. Right? The central thesis is that there is so much of investment technology that goes into building e-commerce stuff. You look at Amazon, Flipkart, Swiggy, Zomato, they're all building full stack solutions for themselves, their customers, and of course for themselves. But nobody is doing the same thing for 30, 40 million retailers in the country. And now with ONDC, you will see more noise, but there was actually nobody doing that. So that was the mission statement on which we started. We are 8 years into this journey now. We have almost 10 million monthly active users, 5 million transacting users. We are the largest platform driving almost 80% of volume on ONDC and 10 times more volume of that outside of ONDC. Right? So it's been 8 years in the making. Now you will see that the company is big, but it actually took 8 years of grind, effort, non-stop work to take the company to the current stage it is.
Great, great. How did the idea originate?
So all ideas, especially when you have co-founders, right, starts from meeting your co-founder. So I met Anshoo, who is my co-founder at Bain, which I had joined from campus, IIM Bangalore itself, in 2008 when I joined Bain, 2007. And Anshoo and I have similar backgrounds. He also went and joined a fund. And we were both wondering at that time that, India is going to explode. And Anshoo had actually gone to China at that time, and he saw the internet taking off massively, and this is China of 2014. What you feel in India today, China was like 7-8 years back. And actually India is far better than that in many respects now, but we saw internet explode, and we realized that if we have to build a company, this is the right time to build, right? And it has turned out to be right. The last decade has been great, and the next decade is going to be even better. And so the next question was, which idea? And both of us are consultants, right? So what do consultants do when you have a problem statement in front of you? You create a 2x2 or a framework, right? So we built a framework, and we said, okay, let's look at size of the market, right? Competition in that market, so our ability to win. So we looked at size of the market, ability to win, because we were confident that both of us are from tech background and we work hard. So if we pick a problem, we will make sure that we win in that space. So we went very consulting-like. We said size of the market, competition, offline retail. Nobody's playing in that space. So let's pick offline retail and build a company around that. Now in hindsight, that was naivety also, because offline retail doesn't have competition because it's actually very difficult to build. It took us a few years to realize that there are so many companies who started attempting, but all of them started failing. In fact, when we started in 2015, there were at least 500 startups in this space. And today there is nobody except us remaining. So we picked the space which was very competitive for a certain period of time, very difficult to build a business in, but once you build a business, it's extremely hard to dislodge. And why is that? Because we said we'll pick the market of local retail. Local retail means 30 million small shops. And if you have to build a business that aggregates so many small shops, the moment you reach a stage of, let's say, 5 lakh, 10 lakh retailers, it's impossible for anyone else to now come in and replicate it. It will take them another 6 years. right? So we picked a hard market, and I am glad we picked a hard market, because if you had picked an easy one, like say e-commerce for ABCD, then I'm sure we would have probably not be as successful.
Well, so IMB was useful. You developed a 2x2 matrix.
Yeah, I did, and I took an elective on strategy, and then Bain, all of them just keep telling me that you build frameworks, you build hypotheses, and that's how you succeed in life. And I used to wonder, is that actually so? But then when we started the company, I realized it actually does make a difference, because it forces you to really short circuit your decision process. If you do not have a process around taking decisions, you will waste a lot of time.
That's great. Tell us a little bit about your early years, Brij, about your upbringing, where you started off as a child, and so on. So tell us what got you here.
Yeah, so I mean, it's very similar to many of you in the audience, right? Typical Indian middle class upbringing, engineering, then MBA. Father was a government servant, right? Think of more stuff, it will exactly match. But you know what was missing? That I had a chip on the shoulder that I will want to build a company of my own. I had that when I joined the campus. I knew that, you know, I can think of joining consulting, right? I can win the game, but eventually if I have to leave a mark, I have to build something of my own. So that's the only difference I would say. Otherwise, if you look at my profile, my co-founder's profile, you'll find exactly all the things you need to do in life. Do an engineering, do an MBA, go to a top consulting firm, do investment after that, right? All the things you can think of, I checked off, but I realized none of them will give me the satisfaction as the satisfaction of building on your own. And which I've done it for now 8 years, right? I can say nothing else in life compares to that.
Well, 8 years is a long time in the life of an entrepreneur. Tell us about the struggles, the heartaches, and the joys.
Sure, but before that, how many of you in the audience, just raise your hand, how many of you want to start up? That's insane, right? I remember when I started up, right? One of my really good friends said that I would not have ever assumed that you would start a company. Because starting up a company that time was a crazy idea. And I'm glad it is changing, right? Because as I already mentioned, starting up on your own is the best thing you can do. But why do you guys want to start? Like anyone, one or two of you, if you can answer, why do you guys feel so passionate about starting up? Money, value. Sure. Creating value, okay?
Being an employer rather than just an employee.
Yeah, that's good. You don't want someone answerable to. Do you know who you will be answerable to when you start your own company? No, it's not investors. Absolutely not. No, not at all. You will be answerable to yourself. There is a massive opportunity cost of starting up, right? Sorry?
I think you need to also tell them how much they will earn in the first 3 years.
Yeah, I was about to come to it, because you know the answering to yourself is easier said than done. When I and Anshoo left and started Magicpin, we left a job that even now will pay us like 3 times of what we take, even now, right? And we left that job, and for 3 years we were at a 20% mark to market salary equivalent, right? And for first 3 years, while we took the capital initially to make sure we don't have to die, but every single day you will question yourself. You have a family, right? So you're answerable to yourself. So you have to make sure that the time you're spending is actually worth it. So the first myth I want all of you to remember, if anything that you want to take from the session is just one thing, starting up is exciting, but it's actually the hardest thing you can do in your life. So don't be, enamored by building and starting up, how it is cool to not have a boss. Dude, the worst boss you can have is yourself. I can tell you that. If you have, I'd rather have an external boss telling me what to do than myself pushing myself to do stuff. It is super hard. And Professor asked about failures, right? Right from day one, when we realized that offline retail, if you have to acquire a merchant, you have to actually go on the ground, meet the merchant, talk to him in different languages, convince him to take 5 rupees give 5 rupees to us. To COVID. COVID literally killed our company. When COVID happened, we were at roughly couple of $1 million a month of revenue. One day it went to 0. Just one day, overnight. That's how tough startups can be, right? If you have been building something for 6 years and 5 years and you suddenly realize my revenues are gone and I'm sitting on a cost, and now you have to take care of the cost. How do you take care of the cost? You let go of people. When you let go of people you've hired by promising them things that you will do for them, it's the toughest thing you can do in life, right? Asking people to go. And there were some senior people that I had to let go. A team had to be let go because there was no other option. You have to survive the company, right? You have to make sure the cost comes down, it gets under control, weather out the COVID storm, and then we'll see what happens. So these are things that happen when you start a company. You see mostly at the end or at the start, right? Which is the honeymoon period. The first 2 years is the honeymoon period. You are so excited. All of you said we want to start up. You will be working like 20 hours, 22 hours a day, building your product. You will be so excited about doing it. But after 2 years, when the revenue will not come, when your board will ask, investors will ask, when your family will ask, I know my biggest memory at that time was somebody in my relative said, "आप क्या करते हो?" तो मैंने बताया कि मैं ये करता हूँ. कहते पहले तो ब्रिज कंपनी में थे, अब क्या कर रहे हो? But that is what happens, right? Because you can't explain what a startup is and what am I doing leaving such a good firm. But that is what happens in a startup. And as a founder, that is what happens. You will see many near-death experiences where you will question yourself, where your family will question what are you going through. You have to go through it. And you will go through it if you're starting up for the reason that you don't see any other way than this to create impact in life. Because if you have that as a true north, then you will go through all the grind.
Can you take us back to some of the failures that you experienced in the journey of Magicpin and how you improvised, adapted from those failures?
I think the COVID period was pretty harsh, right? As I mentioned, like our $2 million month revenue went to zero. And incidentally, just before that, we were raising capital. And so if some of you are aware of how the VC-backed startup system works, you have to have capital so that you can hit the next milestone and you start building companies on basis of that. So if you don't have enough capital and you're building a VC-focused growth-oriented company, which basically means you don't have profitability. So we can't overnight generate cash and save the company. So we had to let go of people. But more importantly, is that we had to find a way to keep the company running and grow. And at that time, we built home delivery. So until then, Magicpin was about a customer will go to a store, use the app, pay, and save money. But in that period of COVID, when all of us were remote, we built the full home delivery solution in 1 month. Like building an equivalent of Zomato and Swiggy in month. Like we worked non-stop because we realized that's the only way out. If COVID is there, people will not go out, so they will come at home. We have to build something that we can offer to our retailers. That okay, अभी आपके पास customer नहीं आ रहे, but हम आपका सामान customer के पास भेजेंगे. और हमारे पास पूरा technology है, पूरा logistics है, because of which we will send the stuff to at home. Now that was insane. Like I still remember and reflect and wonder how did we manage to pull off, but there was no other option. There was an existential crisis. If we don't do that, we would have shut down in 6 months. So when your back is against the wall is when you innovate, right? Constraints, etc. That is when I truly realized the merit of the theory कि constraints से actually innovation होता है. पैसे नहीं थे, time नहीं था, business model फट गया है तो अब बनाना पड़ेगा. तो बनाया फिर और surprisingly बन गया. And actually that is the thing that is driving the growth today. I was telling Professor, right, that I had not imagined that home delivery or omni-channel stack that we built is what is going to power ONDC. Because ONDC was not even a concept that time. But that's how things, fit out in life as long as you're committed to building it out.
That's a remarkable story. Now you are the top dog today in that business. In the next 5 years, what can upend your business?
Many things actually. That's the thing I constantly worry about. Right from bad execution, bad hiring, a lot of things that go wrong in business side, right? There is also macro things that can happen that are not in your control. By the way, that's one thing that you realize as an entrepreneur. You fret about it, you should, but eventually you can't control. Macro, for example, is COVID, or macro is if Indian economy doesn't grow, if FDI is in the country goes down, or if the VC environment continues to worsen off, or for example, ONDC is scaling up but it doesn't, right? Or if there is a big competitor that comes in. I can tell you that if you are starting a company, there are 200 ways in which you can die, and you don't know which one will kill you. So you have to just be paranoid and hope that you build enough that you don't die.
Well, that reminds me of Andy Grove's famous saying.
Only the paranoid
"Only the
survive."
paranoid survive.
That's true, by the way. Anshoo has this, my co-founder has this saying that be paranoid, and I think completely relate to it. You have to be paranoid. You don't know what will hit you. And even when your company is profitable, things can hit you. So as if you really are attached to your company, right, paranoia is the only way to make sure you don't die. The moment you relax, the moment you step back is when you know things are not going to be as successful in the next 1 year.
Just to be clear, what exactly is paranoia?
Worry.
I'm not talking about the psychological.
Yeah. The reality. So it basically means being constantly questioning your decisions to see if there is something better that you can do. Paranoia is not worry. You know, just paranoia doesn't mean that I sit in my room and worry about what's going to happen to the company. It basically means every decision I am taking, I'm going to question myself and say, is there something better I can do? Can I grow this business faster? Can I make it more economical? Can I hire a better person? Can I go into this new market? Is it the right decision? So I need to constantly be on top of my professional game. And the professional game of a startup founder is to actually take great decisions. So I need to be on top of it, which basically means being paranoid about my decisions being wrong. If I'm at that, then I'm pretty sure that even if some of my decisions are wrong, so many of my decisions will be right that the company will be taken care of.
You know, entrepreneurship is a little bit of exploration. We were talking about
Yeah.
explorers like Shackleton a little while ago. And there is both uncertainty, but also there is a great discovery and the joy and achievement of it. But it's also leadership. What can you tell us about leadership? What can our people here learn about leadership from the journey of an entrepreneur?
One of the things that I learned from was actually seeing good people, like really great leaders. When I was fortunate to work with at Bain, then I joined a startup for 2 years and I worked with an incredible guy who has listed his company last year for Traction Technologies, Abhishek Goel. So I learned from them on how to handle difficult situations. Basically, leadership is about tough situations. How do you stand up and make sure that you're taking a decision that's going to be the right thing? It's less about doing the glorified things, right? It's not about shouting and, you know, taking town halls and motivating people. It's about taking decisions that ensures that the company goes forward. So when it comes to entrepreneurship, the best thing you can do is to be around founders. Especially if you want to start up, my one piece of small advice would be work at a startup if you can. Work with a founder, see how they do, especially a company that is going through a hyper growth phase. With hyper growth phase, there's so much chaos that you will not, I can't even explain how chaotic it is. But when you're in that chaos, you will see the founders work. That is how you will learn what to do when you are in that similar situation. So that's the only thing I can suggest, because otherwise all the other things, conceptual frameworks, you will learn when you start a company. Nothing prepares you for it.
But leadership is also about, you know, taking people with you to a destination.
Yeah.
And you may have a conception of where you wish to go, but all the people in your organization may not have it to the same extent.
Yes.
And
Happens
the
many
work-
times.
So what about the work of leadership in this area?
So whenever you will start a company, right, you will get the initial employees. Ignore the co-founder part, right, because you both equally committed, or 3 people, all of you are committed. But outside of that, when you hire your first employee, they are joining you because they feel that I like working with this guy and this company might be big someday. That's all, you know. But when you start building the company, because people are smart, they will start questioning your decisions. They'll say, oh यार ये क्यों कर रहे हो, इसमें इतना खर्चा क्यों कर रहे हो, ये बिजनेस क्यों बनाना है, इस प्रोडक्ट को छोटा कर दो, इस प्रोडक्ट को एंड्रॉयड में iOS में क्यों लॉन्च करना है, just make it only on Android. And everyone has opinions. What you do is, as you build your company, you do 2 things. One, you explain why you're taking a decision. You have to. It's your obligation to your organization that you explain why you're taking a decision. And second, once you have taken a decision, be open to changing it if things go wrong. A lot of time people will take a decision, I'm building this for this stage and that's it. Now आपको करना है तो करो, नहीं करना तो मत करो. That is actually wrong. You gain trust and respect of people by saying, I think this is the right path for me. But then you also, if circumstances, data prove you wrong, you're willing to openly admit and change your mind. Because when you do that, then what employees think is that, okay, I understand this guy decided on a path like this, but I know that if evidence comes and he's proven wrong, he'll be humble enough to accept and change his decision. Those are two principles that I consistently follow, that I will explain what I am taking, why I am taking a decision, and then I will go and change if needed. And then I will acknowledge also if I made up a mistake.
Thank you. And of course, you would in the process also give them a noble reason to do what you want them to do.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, Brij. This was very nice and very
Pleasure.
interesting.